Folks, by semi-popular demand. I had a question about this bad boy. Ignore that little guy right there for now. I'll get to him. The question of servicing your door locks. Now, this is a door lock. This is from the rear right. What people notice is when they go to unlock or lock their doors is that sometimes they'll lock and then immediately unlock, right? So oftentimes you have to hold the button down, or you have to kind of get fiddly with it in order for the lock to stay open. The issue is more than likely that the rubbers have degraded in your door actuators. These are very simple and very reliable. I've never seen any of these fail, and I've gone through a few of them just to see what's going on. I even have an extra set just in case. I know they do fail. Obviously, they're like 20 something years old at this point, but let me talk about what you want to do. You can see I got mine from LKQ. I've had these for over a year. You know what it is. Now, this unit is special. This unit is slightly newer, but I do want to talk about what is going on with the little rubber thing right here. So, pardon my work table here. My work table's a little bit of a mess. So, first and foremost, you will chew this thing up opening it, as you can see. Because if you can see that thin little gray line right there, this is held together with a seal. I don't believe that this seal is supposed to be this watertight, because there's other places for like water to get ingress into this thing, especially through the bottom holes here. But nonetheless, this thing is, you will fight this. If you're trying to open this bad boy up, be gentle, be generous, be patient. You can see that I bent the heck out of mine, but you can get it open. You'll want to get a spudger in, and the easiest way to do that is through this corner right here. You can tell I kind of mauled that corner up a little bit. It's not that bad. Like once you take that off, you can see that the corner is not that damaged. You can always get that little edge to seal, but you will almost not be able to get this bad boy open without a little bit of force. If anyone comes up with a method of opening these without just fucking them up, I've used knives, I've used blades, I've tried using pry tools. These things, the clearance between the top and the bottom is tiger tight. So you're going to have a wonderful time getting into that. So anyways, yeah, Blendor, for those of you who are wondering what that is. Anyways, once you get this open, now I've had the liberty of, I've got this thing upside down, so let me just kind of turn this upside down. There you go. I've had the liberty of being in here already, and what you're seeing right there, that little A88, is the rubber bump stop that you see in a lot of the videos that people take of these things being destroyed. I'm going to go ahead and pick up the good one here. This is what they look like. You can see that they mount like so, and they take the brunt of the hit right there and transfer it to the back. Now, while this thing looks really good, you can see that the back is pretty chewed up, mostly because this rubber is probably biodegradable, and because of that, you can see that over 20-something years, this has become kind of like very weird, like almost like gooey plastic. I know it's rubber. It is rubber. It might be natural rubber, which is why it's decaying, but you can see that that little guy, which goes right there. Does everybody see that little tiny swing arm? Let me go ahead and manipulate that swing arm so people can see what it's actually doing. So when the little actuator moves back and forth, you see that the swing arm hits that rubber stop. And the problem for a lot of people is if that rubber stop goes too far. So for a lot of people, the rubber stop is probably missing or degraded or destroyed. The nylon piece up there strikes the empty space and immediately opens. It's a safe feature of this little motor. You can see kind of how this array works. You can see kind of how it's activated. The little motor down there activates, locks with the gear, and then, unlocks and locks your door. Now, this bad boy does work, but, when they're this old, you can get little guy again, when they're this old, you can see that they are definitely degrading in one way, shape, or form. And you can see kind of, let me go ahead and center that so people can see how they go in. I'm going to center that here. Oh, a little too far. I'm going to center that to the best of my ability, and I'm going to try to put that back in while also looking through the camera here. So I'm just going to drop that in. Oops. Ah, darn. There we go, that's it. So I'm going to show that again to kind of show how that works. Again, bump stop, bump stop. Now, how these commonly fail is if that bump stop little guy is supposed to be kind of stuck in there with like glue or something, or just like press fit. You see how it like has like a little tiny pawl. If I press that down, you see that it kind of fits in that little kind of pawl right there. They tend to fall into the gear teeth down here. So if yours will lock but not unlock, typically what's going to happen is something is going to fall. You can actually see some of the rubber down there. Do you see that? Do you see some of that failed rubber chunk? Let me see if I can get that out. Okay, I got most of the chunk out, and you can see that I moved a little bit of the grease. I'm probably going to add a little bit of grease in there. But you can see how some of those rubber pieces can end up down there. That's just kind of like slag from when they just start to break down. So what happens is, they end up down there, and the little rubber pieces get stuck in this little pawl here. This is the guy that like rotates and engages with the teeth, and then you don't get any movement. So let me go ahead and show you what I do to repair these. I do like the rubber stops on these. It's a good reference. It's a good point of reference for measurement. I'll go ahead and grab my calipers and throw up a measurement here. So from top to bottom, with a little bit of loss from the top, it's about 4.5 mils. So if you do any replacing, this is what I'm going to do in mine here. I'm going to go grab my craft foam, and I'll show you guys how I do this. I cut out some craft foam. This is the stuff that I use. I get this stuff from Michael's. Don't ask me what I use it for. It's relatively thick foam. It's a little thicker than the actual little guy here. So we can go ahead and compare, the little guy that I have here versus kind of the little craft foam block. And you can see, you can probably get that relatively close. There is a little bit of squish to it. You can see that they magnetizing to me with electrostatic. But let's go ahead and try to get those close. You can see that's relatively close. You can shave them if you'd like, It depends on what you're looking for in terms of the overall height. If you want, you can trim them however you'd like to get them a little bit better. It's really up to you to kind of figure out what your general height or size should be. I find that by default, the general width of it is pretty close. And so from there, what you want to do is you want to center the gear set here. So you can go ahead and rotate that gear set so you have access to these little guys here. I'm going to remove the other bump stop here because I just like to replace the bump stop. Yeah, I guess you could argue that these are fresh and I shouldn't be removing them, but you can see they're kind of tough to remove unless you have like a little tool. Give me a sec to get that out of there. Alright, so what I did there was I added a little bit of clear grip contact cement and I put those in place. Now you might want to trim yours a little bit. Mine fit pretty well. You can see that they're going to, when they move around, you see that they are just going to provide a nice, firm stop with plenty of clearance. You're going to get mileage out of these bad boys. This is what I've used to kind of repair these in general. So you can see that, you can use them to like press them in just a little bit more. I usually like to make sure that they're set properly so, they don't kind of get in the way. But you can see that the clearances are, always going to be tight in those little areas. But that's what I do to kind of restore these door locks. It's not a perfect science for obvious reasons. You can come up probably with some better ideas than me. And you can see that the other one is actually like OEM condition. For some reason, depending on the lock side, some of these can get like really beat up. This one's actually okay. You can see that this one actually looks pretty good. You can see that it has a little bit of damage on it compared to the lock side, which, yeah, that's rough. You can see that it's been just worn down and just kind of distorted. So yeah, even though I made mine a little bit thicker, I've never run into any issues with making them this thick. So again, I just kind of used a pick to kind of put it in the position, and you can see that they do in fact work. Again, let me just kind of demonstrate that real quick. Yeah, see? And Once you have them fairly good, they don't swell or anything, just make sure that you clean up a little bit. And then when you're done, what I usually do is I do not use Gorilla Grip for this. I use B7000, kind of cell phone sealant, the kind of stuff that they would use to seal a cell phone. That kind of makes sure that everything gets sealed and is reasonably watertight. And it can be undone if you need to go back in here. So that's going to do it for this. I hope this has been somewhat helpful. You can seal this however you want with RTV, whatever you got. Just know if you make any mistakes, it's pretty easy to go back in here, and the tolerances aren't super incredible. So this is just how I repair these. Best of luck to those of you out there.